Trading has closed on June 16th, 2022. We always start with our disclaimer. I still have some people who break these rules. Please don't skim over them because I've had to block a few people in the past week. If you do any of these things, I will block you and I won't warn you first. These are the rules. If you don't like it, get your own channel. Remember, I can be completely wrong, and any trade you make should be at your own risk. Look for the pattern with the early low, which is this. It tends to be a rally day with a high in the final hour. If it's weak, that's what we got, and tomorrow should also have the early low. If it's weak instead like this, more weakness should follow. Even if we don't close down, we should trade lower. And only thing that would kill it would be to gap up and overtake these highs. I don't see that happening. Well, we cross off the last unfilled target from 2021. We'll say more about this in just a minute. 3701.75 is bitten to dust, and the next lower target's around 3200. During the day, we got a sell signal from MEJT. This blip up was said to be a false move, and it did retrace. The sell signal doesn't have to stop at the minimum target. Well, at the end of last year, this is New Year's Eve, I showed this chart. I gave a list of prices I thought would print before this year was up. And now the last one, it's supposed to be red, take my word for it. Last one's printed. Next lower price targets from July 24th, 2020, and that's 3200.69. Now we had 8 targets which didn't print in 2020, but if you'll notice, 2 of them were on the 30th of June, and 2 of them were on July 14th. So we really only had 6 days in which a target didn't print. And if you ignore this cluster here, there's this cluster and 2 other times when they didn't print. We can now add 2021 to the list. We have 20 complete years here. In 13 of the 20 years, every single target printed. We get 500 standard targets in a year and 150 ultimate ones. We have 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 7 ultimate targets which haven't printed in this period here. So maybe 1 every 3 years. We only have 23 weeks out of 20 years in which a target didn't print, so on average about 1 week a year. And for this period of time, we've averaged fewer than 2 targets a year out of 650 which haven't printed. They just don't always print as soon as you want them to. Barring some kind of miracle tomorrow, we're going to print a bar completely under this bar in the weekly chart. That's a break of support into Mark's work. Doesn't mean we have to drop immediately, but it means major support has failed to hold. DeMark's stuff had a bunch of real failures over the course of the advance, but here's a 913.9 combo sell signal right at the high at the end of last year. So when they work in spades. Just a reminder of what we said. It was a rally yesterday. I said that futures were up, so if the gains were maintained, which they obviously weren't, we should close up. They weren't maintained though. But I said I couldn't come up with a wave count compatible with the recent collapse having ended. And if we do rally, I don't think it'll go that far till it fails. So that turned out to be an understatement. Here's a daily chart. Saturday is a F23 date for a crash low on Carolan's work. Saturday the market's closed, so that means either Friday or Tuesday. Someone else has a calendar date on Tuesday, and if this works, I'd prefer a crash low Tuesday. And remember, just because the date's there, it doesn't mean you have a crash. But if we gap under this trend line, remember, you gap under the line and the line wins. If we gap under it, we have all the elements we need for a crash with a plausible ending date on Tuesday. There is some flexibility with these dates. We had balance, wave balance, great wave balance at 36.78, and we just broke right through it. So we have to look for wave balance someplace else, and usually when these things fail, they fail in grand style. I'm counting this as impulse. This could be wave 1, that's 2, another 1, 2. We could be 1, 2, and a third wave of multiple degree here. Now crashes are rare things, but they do happen. And when they happen from oversold conditions in third waves of multiple degree. Now just because the conditions for a crash are present, it doesn't mean we'll have one, but this is the kind of conditions in which crashes happen. Let's pick a possible target. My next one is wave C equaling twice wave A. So you set wave A at 50%, and you get 32.29.36 for a target. And if you look inside wave gray C and you relabel the waves, which you're allowed, and you remember that this last wave truncated, you can see that there's good fibs between magenta A and B. Make that magenta A and C. Here's the ratios. Let's take a look at the longer term chart and remember 32.29.36. Well, 32.29.36 is here. Here's the high, 48.18.62. If we're going to be in wave green C and stop, you want it to have some kind of relationship to the prior consolidation. And if you take the middle swing, that works great, right at the 50%. But what really gets my attention is if you take the whole rally from 2009 to 2022, a 38.2% retrace is 32.32.62, which is really 2.5 points away from the target. So we have 32.29.36 as one reasonable target and one reasonable date next Tuesday if we crash. And I think if we gap down, which is entirely possible, we could wind up here by Tuesday. None of this is carved in stone, of course, and just because these things work, it doesn't mean other things won't. Friday's market has the early low. It could gap up. Signals are mixed. It's positive. We gapped down, hit lower lows, closed over the lows. It's a positive pattern. But if we gap and promptly undercut the lows, that vitiates the pattern. It's negative. Today's normally bullish pattern was negative instead. Early weakness pretends more weakness as well. The wave count's compatible with us being in a wave 3 of multiple degree. I can't count the decline is complete. And if we gap down tomorrow, we could have a rare crash with one possible target price being 32.2926 and a possible date being Tuesday, June 21st. We gap down, closed over all these lows. Who knows what will happen tomorrow? But we gap down here at the open. We have all we need for a crash, all we need for a collapse into Tuesday. And that's today's call.